Good afternoon to you from Wilmington, North Carolina. I am Mark Sudduth. It is now July 5th, 2023, and you've tuned into the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. Today's main topic, yes, the Euro continuing to go big for a very busy Atlantic hurricane season. We will examine some of the reasons why it is thinking that, so to speak, and we'll look at some other tidbits here and there of what's happening out in the tropics and something going on over in Europe that I found very interesting. And that'll pretty much cover it for today, all right? Hopefully everybody survived the 4th of July. You still have all of the fingers that you started with. We'll just put it that way. I do. So anyway, good to have you. So let's go over to Storm 2K real quick and look through their 2023 indicators thread, a very active thread, many pages deep. And we go through some of these posts as of late, different people embedding the tweets here from folks that are talking about the season. And then let's just kind of scroll down here to basically today, and we see what happens here. This tweet, this is Cyclone I, Luis from Puerto Rico, posting this from Phil Klotzbach. We'll expand it over on Twitter. Twitter still works, so we might as well use it. And this is really important here, and I'm going to read it as I talk to you as well, because this is pretty darn important and kind of eye-opening, that despite the aggressive El Niño forecast continuing from the ECMWF, it also continues to predict a very busy hurricane season going forward. So basically, as Phil talks about here, Dr. Klotzbach, the best estimate from the Euro and its system of how it comes up with all of this, 17 more named storms, 9 hurricanes forming from August 1st, so that's not even counting anything that might or might not happen in July, through the rest of the season. So 9 hurricanes to go. That is pretty substantial considering this pretty aggressive forecast here for what it's predicting for ENSO, the El Niño Southern Oscillation phenomenon. These are the different ensemble members, if you will. This is the plume from the Euro, and it doesn't draw its own mean in here, so we can kind of interpret it maybe down the middle, something like that. That's pretty aggressive. If I'm accurate in some kind of a mean there or an average, I guess it would bend down a little bit more as we get further out in time, but it is certainly suggesting maybe getting near 2 degrees Celsius above the long-term average in the Niño 3.4 area of the tropical Pacific. I don't think that's going to happen, and I'll explain why as we progress as well. We'll see. I could be wrong, but the evidence of what's happening right now certainly doesn't suggest that. So here is some of the data. This is the August, September, October, November, December, January, all the way out the next several months. The climate mean is what normally should happen. That's the orange, and then the green is the forecast mean, looking at about 2.8 standard deviations above the norm. So about 9.3 hurricanes in this area, the Atlantic Basin, with the Eastern Pacific about 1.6 above normal standard deviations, with 5 more hurricanes. So more hurricanes in the Atlantic than the Eastern Pacific, with a fairly active Western Pacific overall, about 2.3 standard deviations. If you know your statistics, you know what that means. A little bit more active than normal in the East Pac, maybe even a lot more than normal. And then looking at the overall tropical cyclone or tropical storm frequency, that is at 16.6. You can just round it up and call it 17. So it is the opinion of me, and it makes sense that Dr. Klotzbach, his team at Colorado State, wait for it, hopefully you hear that. That was a big lightning strike right outside the window. Holy mackerel. Glad we got surge protectors on the old HurricaneTrack headquarters. It flashed through my office window. Wow, and I've got these cool curtains over there. I'll show you what they look like one day. That distracted me, clearly. Anyway, I think that the forecast numbers are going to go up. They probably kind of have to, if you will, because a lot of data is aimed in the direction of a very busy season. We've got the Euro still holding on to, and I believe that the ACE score that it is predicting is still near 200. I was talking over Twitter on private message with a gentleman about that from South Florida, and from what he has seen, it looks like it's about 200. I'll verify and look into that. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. But a very big forecast from the Euro. The UK Met had a very robust forecast as well, the UK Met office out of England. And our friends over at the University of Arizona also recently, in the early part of June, came out with their very aggressive forecast with an ACE well above 200. So that's a lot of different indicators and forecasting groups and scientists and whatnot that is just saying, look, the Atlantic's too warm for its own good. Despite the El Niño, we should have a very busy season. And I'm going to show you a little bit of an interesting factor in all of this. We have El Niño, but it may not be, all El Niños are not created equal. Let's just put it that way. So let's move along and take a look at the background state of what we are talking about overall. There's our El Niño in the Eastern Pacific. Broken record here, I know. There's the cold water in the Northeastern Pacific. More thunder. Thank you very much, nature. But look also, the Gulf has warmed up, all above normal. The Caribbean's above normal. The tropical Atlantic above normal. The Northeast Atlantic above normal. You can't get a better overall look, sea surface temperature profile-wise, for a very busy Atlantic season, except that El Niño is there. It's like, is that enough to create the strong upper level winds across the Caribbean and the tropical Atlantic to cut the tops off, literally, of tropical waves coming across the Atlantic and keeping a lid on the season overall? Or will there be so much activity that 1, 2, or 3 get through and somehow menace areas west of 60 degrees longitude? I don't want to ignore the Azores or even the Cabo Verde Islands. They can have disturbances or even full-blown hurricanes in the case of the Azores. But a majority of the population that has an interest in what I talk about, they live west of this longitude line right here, 60 degrees west, okay? And that is where most of our interests lie in terms of the Atlantic. And then, of course, we have our Eastern Pacific interests, primarily what we do here at HurricaneTrack. And I just think, man, the signals are there. It's probably going to be a very busy season. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be. We talked about that the other day, that just like in sports, you have somebody that makes a lot of free throws, 90+% doesn't mean they will make the rest of the free throws. Nothing is certain until it happens. It's probability. But I'm telling you, these indicators, and this is the evidence right there, all of that warm water relative to average. This still is interesting. There's your INSO. Yes, very interesting stuff. But there's always buts, right? This is still just astounding to me. The SOI has come up tremendously. Now, don't we wish our stocks and savings and other things would go up like that? All these other core prices have done so. That's a story for a whole different podcast and a whole group of experts. But boy, when they see the Southern Oscillation Index rise, like we have with the 30-day average now, the 30-day average is now 1.63. Normally, for an El Niño to be fully engaged, we need it below -7 or -7 and under or less, right? And even the 90-day has risen and continues to rise. It's more gradual because it's a longer period of time to derive your averages from, but that's up to -5.65. And then the contributor for today is a respectable, let's call it a 13, just round it up to 13. Really incredible to see this in an El Niño year. That means that the easterlies are more in control. The pressure pattern is such that there's more easterly wind going across the Pacific than strong westerly winds to create that conveyor belt to keep going and going and going. So the SOI continuing to impress and kind of shock me there as positive as it has been. Now this is really interesting here. Again, I've known Yakov for a while, especially from over at Storm 2K, and he retweeted this. I guess we can still look at these tweets. That whole Twitter thing's getting to be annoying, but whatever. I hate to even waste time on it. But at least we still have it, and I can show you this. Now, I don't know who this is, so we'll mouse over. Former blue check, right. Amateur weather, and that's fine. You don't have to be an expert if you know what you're looking for, and you're putting credible information out there. Hey, and thanks for the follow. TB time, or Ty B, whatever. I appreciate the follow. At least they seem to trust me. And I like what they posted here because this is what I was talking about many weeks ago. The UK Met forecast that was so aggressive. One of the reasons they cited such an aggressive forecast was that the relative oceanic Niño index, in other words, how the El Niño compares to the rest of the globe, sea surface temperature-wise, the relative ONI, because the Oceanic Niño Index tells us how things are going with an El Niño or a La Niña or a neutral. It's just a way to keep measuring stuff. But the relative ONI relative to what's going on elsewhere on the globe is also very eye-opening. Let's open those eyes big, right? The April, May, June came in at 0.07. That's not an El Nino ONI. It's just not. It's neutral. And that is very, very important. It means, to boil it down, that the atmosphere isn't really acting like we're in an El Nino, and certainly not a strong one, to the extent that we would expect when you see, get rid of me for a second here, this fairly pronounced signature, because all of this is so warm. Everything is warm globally for the most part. So the El Nino isn't as pronounced against the background state, is the bottom line here. So very interesting tweet here. The value is basically neutral. This means that against the anomalous background warmth, that's what I was just saying, of the global tropics, El Nino isn't as strong as previously climatology would dictate. Again, I don't know this person personally, but they put it better than I could. Clearly. I should have just read the tweet. So there you go. That's interesting too. All right, what's going on out there in real time, in the real world, so to speak? I thought this was interesting from TAFB, Tropical Analysis and Forecast Branch. Upper level divergence and elongated low level low and abundant moisture. Oh yeah, there's plenty of it. From the Caribbean to the far western Gulf are supporting a broad area of showers and thunderstorms west of 90 west longitude. Strong to gusty winds and seas to 10 feet across the region. It shows up pretty well here too on the animation from Tropical Tidbits. There it is right there. Not looking at much happening with it. The models don't really see much going on with it, but it is a disturbance. It is down there. Lots of oil platforms. Their meteorology teams, of course, will be on top of it. But I just thought I would point it out in case you saw it and were like, what's that down in the Gulf? Do I need to worry about it? Nope, it's just this right here. That's what the tweet is for. So there you go. Just wanted to show that to you. Sliding over, let's see, I know I wanted to show, go back out here to the wide shot of the Atlantic Basin. Nice and quiet overall, getting ready to get dark over Africa. So you see the Terminator coming. That's what it's called, the delineation between light and dark on the planet, or any of our planets, because they are round. Even if they were flat, they would be this Terminator, the demarcation between light and dark. Astronomical, geophysical term, or whatever. But not much happening in the tropical Atlantic. I like the way that the shadows are. Some dust out here, but again, not that dense, like, oh wow, you can really see the dust all spread out across the Atlantic. It's not there. And that's helping to keep reinforcing this and all that warm water. You see, everything is generally related. Then, again, for our friends in Europe, this is about a 12-hour-old tweet or so, but still relevant nonetheless. So they do name their storms on an official level over there. They call them Storm so-and-so. And I'm assuming that this just one L. It's still Polly, Storm Polly. Pretty powerful extratropical system, feeding off of some of that warm water of the northeast Atlantic for sure. But there's your front associated with it. It's got a big comma shape, so it's not a tropical system. Nevertheless, as of this tweet, currently it was impacting the Dutch coastline, a very powerful storm coming off of the North Atlantic. I just wanted to point that out. Caught my eyes. I was browsing Twitter and enjoying my 10,000 rate session views or whatever it is, and this caught my eye. So you guys let me know, how's it going over there in Europe as this particular storm, their Storm Polly, rolls through. All right, I'm down to just about 8 left of these tracking maps right here. I want to get them out into your hands. Go to the link. I'll put it in the description today. It's $20. I'll fold it up, send it to you in a nice big envelope, and I'll even put a little a surprise in there. I almost said what it was. Just my way of saying thank you. A little swag for you. Big poster-sized tracking map. You're going to need it, according to the Euro anyway, from Phil's tweet over here. We shall see. HurricaneTrack.com. I'll put the link to the map there. And of course, we have our store, our merch store. Just go to the website. Everything you need is right there if you want to continue to support the project beyond just watching on YouTube. And that means a lot to me that you do watch these videos, and hopefully you learn something. All right? All right, let's get this done, wrapped up, and online for you. I almost said on the air, but it goes through the air, through Wi-Fi, so why not, right? And I'll be back tomorrow with more, okay? Okay, have a good rest of your Wednesday. I'm Mark Sudduth again for Hurricane Track. That's us. We'll talk again sometime tomorrow.